Hi guys, I'm John and welcome to my channel. In today's spray paint art tutorial, I'll be showing you how to make your mountains look better. So for this tutorial, you're going to need a paintbrush, some sponges, some spare pieces of card or paper, a cloud stencil. You can find how this is made in the video here in the cards. You're going to need some spray paint. I'm going to be using Montana Gold with a skinny cap on the cans. And the colours I'm going to be using are Mount Everest, Barmuda, Sky Blue, Mount Fuji, Summit, Shock Black and Shock White Pure. And for this mountain tutorial I'm going to be painting on glossy paper, which is A3 in size. And lastly, you're going to need some small pieces of card like this. Different size ones. I get asked quite a lot what material I use when I'm making the mountains, and this is it, just a piece of small card. So for this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how you can make your mountains using these small pieces of card here. So I'll just move these out of the way a bit. And we'll get straight to it by adding some colours to the sky, the background. So it makes the mountains stand out a bit more. So for this I'm just going to use a few blues. And the first colour I'm going to be using is Sky Blue. So just put a bit of Sky Blue in the sky for now. Like that. Bit of Bermuda. You can always go back over a bit of Sky Blue, darken it up in places. And a bit of Summit. So I like how that's looking. Now we'll move on to the cloud stencil. And what we're going to do is add some cloud shapes into the painting. And for this we're going to use the Shock White Pure. So for this we'll just place it on the sheet and we'll just spray towards the stencil to make your cloud shapes. So what you want to do when you're making these clouds is move around on the stencil a bit so you get different shapes of clouds. So they're not all the same. So that'll do for the background colours. There. I might just put a bit more Summit at the bottom here. And a bit of white. Not much, just pressing the cap lightly. So I've gone pretty far down the sheet on here with the clouds. So when I'm doing the mountains, I don't miss any areas. So if you do go too far down your sheet, you can always cover it up later on as you move through each stage of the painting. So now we've got the background, some background in the painting. We're going to move on and start some mountains. So for this, we're going to get a spare piece of card. And we're just going to spray some black onto the card. And sit that there. We're going to be using this paintbrush. This is just a cheap flat brush that I'm going to be using to add the black for the base of the mountains, a base coat. So what I think I might do for this when I'm doing these mountains is I'm going to add a couple of mountains in the distance first. And then I'm going to layer some mountains on top of that one. So we'll just see how it goes as I paint them and add the mountains. First of all, get some black on this paintbrush. And then decide where your mountains are going to go in the painting. I think I'm going to start off with some in the distance here. So just add some black on It doesn't matter about the paint being wet underneath, because that can mix in with the black. So we're just going for like some rough mountain shapes. Don't have to be that neat. And I might just put a peak there. Another bit of mountain. Might have another one here. It's up to you how you do your mountains. You can use a technique I'm going to show you with a piece of card on any shaped mountains. So that'll do for the first set of mountains there in the distance. So that's the black, and as you can see some of the blues and that's mixed in with it, but that's alright. So now we'll move on to another clean piece of card, paper, and spray some white on. Like that. Now we're going to move on and use these pieces of card here. As you can see, I've got lots of different sizes. Some thin ones, some medium ones, and then some thicker ones there. It's always nice to have a variety of different sizes. So when you're doing smaller peaks and now you can use the smaller ones. And so on. If you're doing a big one, you can just use a big one. So you can get the paint on a bit faster than that. So we're going on to these small peaks here. So I'm going to use a piece like this. A medium sized piece. And then what I do is I rip the end off like that. So it's a bit rough on the edge. And then all we're going to do is dip it into the white paint a bit. Just keep an eye on you don't have too much on there. And if you do, you can just dab it on the spare piece of card like that. Then all we're going to do is put a bit of white on the highlighted side of the mountains. So I'm going to have a light coming in from this side here. So we'll put the white on this side of the mountains. So we'll just get the piece of card and all we're going to do is just rub it across the black. It doesn't matter about the black still being wet underneath because it can mix with the white and give you different colours of white. Whites and greys. So it just doesn't look like a block colour of white. So with these being in the distance, I'm not going to put much on these. Just going to do like the peaks. So when you're doing these mountains, and I'd just take your time. Like I've said in other tutorials, there's no rush when you're doing things. Just take your time and enjoy what you're painting. So I like that one there. Now I'll move on to this one. I'll just put a bit there. And a bit there. So all we're doing is going back and forth with the piece of card and adding a bit more white paint onto it each time. And just take your time and look where your mountains are going and stuff like that. If there's no harm in stepping away from the painting and have a looking at it for a minute or two and seeing what you want to do next, or if you want to add any more white or anything to it. I'll just bring that down a bit further. Just going to get a bit more white. Just going to put a bit more there. So with these being in the distance, I'm not going to put any colour on the shadowed side of these mountains because they're in the distance. So them mountains are done now with the white on the highlighted area. So I'm just going to sit this piece of card either way for a minute. And what I'm going to do is, because they're in the background, and you can do this as well, and to push the mountains back a bit, you can get the white. You can get the cloud stencil again. And you can just put like a few clouds in front of the mountains. Or a bit of mist so it looks in the distance. So what we're doing is layering the paint, the mist and that over top of the mountains, so we look further in the distance. So now we've got their mountains done and some clouds in it. We can just put some mist at the bottom as well, just to mist it up a bit. Like that. So then that's the first mountains. Like I said, they're going to be in the distance. So what we'll do now is we'll go back to the paintbrush and the black paint. Just add some more paint to this. Because the Montana Gold's a pretty thick paint. And it can dry pretty fast when it's sitting on a piece of card. So you want it to be pretty wet, the paint, so it's easier to move on the paintbrush when you're doing the block colour for the mountains, the black. So I'll load the paintbrush back up, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some mountains that are closer to us. So I'm going to start with the peak here, I think. We'll just do a rough line at the moment where it's going to go. So I like that there, where it is. And bring that down. So when you're punching mountains in front of each other, bring it like that. Just make sure you've got no gap between them like that, so you can put like another bit of mountain there, and bring it down. So they're in front. I can just bring it like that a bit more. I can bring that one up a bit more as well. I might bring a peak out there. So like I said, there's no rush when you're doing this. Just take your time. Or something like that. Might put one this side as well. Liking that. Just a bit higher, I think, on this one. Let's pop that one out a bit. So I'm liking that, so we'll fill it in with all black now. You could, if you wanted, fill a gap, the area between the lines with straight with a spray can, but I like to put it on with a paintbrush. So then the paint's a bit thicker and will mix with the white when we add it on. So like I said, then you get a variant of different colours. So I like how that's looking. Yeah, I'm going to leave that like that, I think. Yeah. Like I said, just have a look, see what you think before you add the white or anything. If you like the shape of them and that, carry on. If not, you can change it a bit. So we'll go back to the white now. I'm going to use this small one again. So we'll get some white on. And that's dried a bit, so it's a bit thicker. So what I'll do is I'll just add a bit more white to it. Take a bit off it if you've got too much. Like I said, the light's coming in from here, so I'm going to start with this one first. Just put a bit on there. So as you can see, with the black still being wet, mixes in. So like that there. And then we'll move to this one. It's all about taking your time when you're doing these and having a look as you're adding the white to it. And the more you practice with them, the better you'll get at doing your mountains. So just step away, have a look. So I like how that's looking at the moment. Just going to put a bit of white on this one here. Not much there. Then on here. I can pull that down a bit. So just taking your time and building the white up. I'll bring that one out a bit more, I think. So we'll have a look how that's looking. So I'm liking that so far. So this video will be pretty long because mountains do take a while to add to the paintings when you're doing them, especially this way, and you're taking your time. So there's no point rushing a tutorial. You want to show each stage nice and slow so it's easier for you to follow along. So I'm not going to bring this all the way down, the white, because I might put a third layer of mountains just in front of these. So I'm just going with kind of a flow as I'm adding these mountains to the painting. So I think that looks alright, them few mountains there. So I'll just add a bit to these here. These smaller ones. And this one here. So sometimes your card might get a bit clogged with the paint as it's drying as well on the piece of card. So if that happens, you can always just put that to one side and grab another piece. So you could go for a smaller piece. So like I said, just rip the tops off so it's a bit rougher. And then because we're on a smaller peak, it's easier to work with. And also having a rougher edge on instead of an clean edge, clean cut, it's better, gives you some texture on your mountains as well. Just add a bit more there. What I'm going to do is add a bit more white to this because that's getting a bit thick now. So like I said, you want the paint nice and wet. So I'm just going to go back to these and add some white some more white to the peaks in places where the light's going to hit. A bit on this one. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring this one down a bit further. And just add a bit of white to it. I'll just move on to this one. So I quite like how that's looking, the white now on the highlighted side. So we'll leave that for a minute and just put that to one side. Piece of card with the white on it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the shadowed side of these mountains. And I'm going to add some blue to this. So the colour I'm going to use for this one, these mountains, is I'm going to use Mount Fuji. So we're going to spray a bit onto another spare piece of card. I use different pieces of card for each colour so I don't mix the colours up. So now I'm going to go for a new piece of card. I'm just going to rip it off again so it gives you a rough edge like the others. So we'll load some of the Mount Fuji onto the piece of card. If you have too much, just dab it off again. So like I said, we're going to be adding it to the dark side, the shadowed side of the mountains. So because we went this way with the white, when we're adding the highlight, the white side, we're going to get the card and we're going to go this way when we're adding the Mount Fuji, the shadowed side of the mountain. So we'll get the card and we're just going to rub it on this side to give you the shadowed side of the mountain. So just take your time, and we're going to go up to the edge of the white. It doesn't matter if you get any blue onto the white, because you can fix that. So what I'll do is we'll just bring it down like that. Down to the bottom. I'm going to leave some black in places as well, so it's not going to be all blue, the Mount Fuji. So we'll move over to this side, so go that way. So you're pulling the paint the opposite way to the white. And we're just going to go down here to add a bit of shadow to it. Like I said, when you're out doing these mountains, just step away at times to have a look how it's looking. So now we'll go on to this one here. So if you do get a bit too much blue paint on there, don't worry about it. Right, now we'll move on to these ones. It's got a bit too much on there, so just dab it down. You can always flip it over. If you get too much on the one side, you can always flip it over and use the other side. And we'll go on this side. And just bring a bit of blue, just brush it lightly on the black. Go back on this one. So just looking now, I'm going back and forth on this side, on the shadowed side. See if you want to add any more to it. So entirely up to you how much blue you put on the shadowed side and what colours you use. I'm just using these colours in this tutorial so you can see them better. It's most probably the most common colours to use, the white on the highlighted side and the blues on the shadowed side of a mountain. So I'm liking how that's looking now. So I'm just going to sip this blue out the way there. And what I do next is, before I move on to the next stage of painting or add another layer of mountains or something, I'll just get the white again. And if I've gone over with any blue onto the white side, you can always just get a bit of white. And you can just go over where you've gone over with a bit of blue. And you can just do the peaks a bit more on the highlighted side. So just add a tiny bit of white. Like I said, there's no rush when you're doing these mountains. Just take your time. The first time you do these mountains may not turn out the way you want them to, but just keep practicing at them and you'll get there. It's all about practice. The more you practice at summit, the more you'll get used to it. So I'm just going to bring a bit of white there, I think, on that one. A bit down on here. I think just a bit on here. So I'm not rushing this tutorial. So you can see how the process is done. And it's easy to follow. And like I'm doing in stages. So I brought that a bit more. And because I brought that a bit more, I think what I'll do is I'll just, before I move on to the next stage, I'm just going to get a bit more of this blue, this Mount Fuji. I'm not going to have much on it. I'm just going to bring a bit more blue here, I think. That's a bit too much on there. So wipe it off. I'm just going to drag it out there, a bit of a colour. And just bring it down a bit. Just drag the card over the paint that you've already put on and just pull it down a bit. So like that. I'll just do the same there. Just pull it down a bit. I'm just going to move back over to this white. Just put a bit there, I think. So I'm liking how them mountains are looking there. The second layer of mountains. I'm really happy with the way they're looking. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a bit of cloud in front of these ones and some mist at the bottom to push them back into the painting a bit. So we'll get the cloud stencil again and the white spray paint. Give it a shake and bring some paint through. So when you're doing these clouds, you want them to you want to mist them on so you can still see the mountain behind them. So I'll place a cloud stencil there and I'm just going to press it lightly. I might have another one there. Might just have a bit across the peak there. So it's just basically using your cloud stencil, spraying a bit of white on it, having a look at it. If you want to add a few more clouds to it, you can. It's up to you. But I just like to step away after doing a cloud and then looking how it's looking. So I'm quite liking that. I'm just going to put a few at the bottom. Just missed it, but use a cloud stencil as well. So you can get just some rough shapes. And then you can just take it out of a can as well and just mist on the bottom. Might just put a bit of mist on these mountains. So when you're doing this mist on these mountains, just press the cap lightly because you want a real light mist just over mountains. You don't want to block a white because you'll cover all the mountains up then. And then you'll lose your mountains. So there are 2 layers of mountains put in. And I think I'm just going to put a third one here. I'm just going to bring it over this one, I think. So we'll move back to the black paint and spare piece of card. Put some more on because that's definitely dried out, that black there. And with the paintbrush we're going to add the third layer of mountains in. So this is getting a bit stiff now, this paintbrush, because the paint's drying on that as well. But I'm just going to carry on and use it. Add a bit of paint to it, should soften it up a bit. So we'll get some paint on there, so the paint softened the brush up again a bit, so it's easier to move when you're painting on the painting. So let me think, where can I put this? So I'm going to have these here, so these are the most in the foreground, these mountains this side. So I think I'll have a peak here. So like I said, there's no rush. Just take your time, have a look at the painting and see where things are going to go. Yeah, I'm going to bring that peak about there. I'm going to have it. Somewhere like that. I'll have that running off the painting. And then I'm going to bring it. So there's no rush when you're doing this, just take your time. You can always step away, have a look, see what it's looking like. So I'm going to have a peak there, I think. So I'm just going with the flow with this. So I'm not really sure how it's going to turn out, but with anything, just give it a try and see. So I'll bring that down there, I think. So we still got them mountains showing through. I'll bring that peak there, so I can have like a double peak there. And I can drop down a bit. And then what I'll do is have another peak here. So we're just putting the outline onto this mountain first. We'll fill the block colour in a minute. I'm going to have another one here, I think. Cover that so I can bring that down like that. So I'm liking how that's looking there at the moment. Just go back over to this edge. So I'm liking that outline there. What I think I might do is I'm just going to bring some like rolling mountains here on this side. So bring another one there, so I'll have it. So I'm going to do these a bit smaller here than the ones in the distance. You could bring it up a bit more like that, but I don't really want to hide the mountains in the background too much, as this is a tutorial. I want to show you how it looks as you're layering them. So I'm not liking this part here, so I'm just going to put a little peak there. Like that, I think. And I think here I'm just going to put one last one, so it just rolls off paint in there. So I'm liking that side of the painting. So we've got that side sorted. I think here, about halfway down, I'm just going to put another piece sticking out. And you could also just put another one. It's up to you how you do these. So I think I'm going to have that there like that. So I know most of the background is covered up now. But like I said, bringing the sky down or the background 3/4 of the way down your painting. It doesn't matter if you go too short on your mountains or too tall. At least all the background's covered, if you know what I mean. So you've got none of the white cards showing through if you've done your mountains too low or that. So it's always good to bring your sky down further than what your mountains are going to go. So then you've covered all the sheet before you add the mountains. So I'll add some more black to this. And then I'm just going to fill in this block here now. So with the black, load your paintbrush up now, because we're just filling it in. Like I said, you could get your spray paint and fill this in with straight how you can, but I'm just going to paint it with a paintbrush because I don't want any overspray going on any of the painting, the rest of the painting. So we'll just get the black and fill it in with black. You can also, when you're painting, filling in with black like this, you can bring like a rough shape of your mountains. So you can go that way with the black like this on your, so this is going to be your light side, the highlighted side of the mountain. So like that, bring your paintbrush like that. And then when you come onto the other side of the mountain, you can just pull the paintbrush down this side. So it gives you like a basic shape. And you can follow that when you're putting your white in, your white highlights on your mountains. It's entirely up to you how you add the black paint in. You could just slap it on like that and just do that quick. So it just covers your black up, the paint up that you've already put on. Like I said, just go like that one way and any other way if you want. It's up to you. I tend to do that, but just slap it on at the same time. So we're just having like a black on it. Doesn't have to be neat. I'm just going to rough this up a bit here, give it a bit of a neater edge at the bottom. We will cover most of this up, but it's something to work off. So we've got like a neater edge there. Took a while to add that black in, but I wanted to show you, and I wanted to take my time just to show you how the mountains would sit and that. So another good thing you can do when you're painting mountains is, if you're painting it like this, tabletop down, you don't really get a good view of what the painting's looking like. So what you can do is you can lift the painting up and rest it against something, so you can have a better look at it. So you can stand away from it and look at it against a wall or something. That's what I did when I first started making mountains, and it looked better. You could see the mountains forming and that, whereas when you're painting straight down like this, it's kind of hard to see it. Right, with the black added to this, we'll get the white again. I'll move this black over here. Get the white. I nearly sprayed the black then. We'll get the white. And what I'll do is get a new piece. So what you could do here, you could get a bit of a bigger piece on this one. So we'll just rip the top off again, the same, so it's a bit rougher. It's the same process whether you use a big piece of card or a small piece of card. But a smaller piece of card, you have more control of where your white paint's going when you're adding it on. I'm going to start on this big peak first, the tallest one. It's just the same as the other mountains we've done. Just get the white. We're just going to rub it onto a black. Like I said, it doesn't matter about it being wet, because it can mix with a white. Give you that different colour. So like I just add a little bit more to that there. And drag a bit out here. So just dragging it over this paint now. And also with you using the paintbrush, you can get a bit of texture as well on your painting. So when you rub the card over, it catches some of the raised areas where you put more paint on with a paintbrush, which I kind of like that effect as well. That's why I use a paintbrush when adding the black as well to the mountains. So I'm going to leave that one like that for a minute. I'm going to move on and do this side first. So just remember, not check that, make sure you haven't got too much white on it. And if so, you could always turn it around. So I'm just going to turn it around and do this side. Step away, have a look. So as you can see, I'm not rushing when I'm adding this white. I'm just taking my time, because I keep stepping away and having a look at how they look in the mountains and that. Because if you're enjoying something you're painting, just take your time. There's no point rushing when you're enjoying it. I paint because I like it and I find it relaxing. So there's no point rushing. So I'm liking them there. I could just bring that out a bit more. Actually, I'm just going to get the card and we'll just rub it at the bottom, just to kind of fade it out a bit. It's a bit harder to kind of fade the paint out with spray paint when using like a piece of card and that. So if you just brush it against the paint lightly, then you get it so it's like fading out. So then I'm going to not use this big one anymore. I'm going to go to a smaller piece again and get some white on. I'm just going to put a bit on this peak here. Like that. I think that's looking nice. Same on this one, I think. Just gonna put a bit on there. So I'm just going to do the tops of each of these peaks at the moment. See what it looks like. You can always go back in a minute, so you get a rough idea where they're going to go. Yeah, like that. Liking them three there. I'm going to put a bit on this one. Not much. And the same as this one. Might bring that one down a bit more like that. Too much on there. You can always bring that one round down looking at it now. So I haven't got much on there, and as you can see it doesn't go all on it, just hitting the raised areas. And this one, too much on there. Like I said, just keep an eye out when you're dipping it into the white paint. So if you just dip it in and use it, you'll have quite a lot on like that. So just wipe it off. And if you do get too much, or the cards have been messed up on the edge, just get a new piece. That's why I have quite a few here, so I can just keep swapping as I'm painting. So a bit too much white on there, on that one. That's alright. And just bring it around on this one. So the paint's getting a bit thick now. It's dried out a bit, so it's a bit harder to move on the painting and that. So if that happens, just get some more white paint. Depends what brand you're using as well as spray paint. Some dry faster than others. So this Montana Gold dries pretty fast. So that's why I've been adding more and more paint to keep it runny, so it's easier to move. So now when it's on your card again, it's easy. It glides over the black a bit better and doesn't clog as you're moving it like it does when it's drying out a bit. So I'm going to bring that one down, looking at the painting, I think. Bring it down like that. And I can also bring this one down a bit. I like peak there, and then it can come down like that. So just push a bit there like that. Bring it down, fade it through like that. So I'm liking how that's looking there. So we're going to step away and have a look at that. Yeah, I'm liking that. So we'll go back to this. up to this one again. So what I might do with this one here, looking at it, I'm just going to get the card and I'm just going to bring it down pretty thin so it just looks like it's like a gully or something in the mountains where it's catch the snow down on the one side. So like that. So I'm liking the look of these mountains at the moment. I'm just going to build this big one up again. Just add a bit more white in areas. And bring it down a bit more, fade it out. Put a bit there. So I'm liking how that's looking. Could just bring this out a bit more, this one. Just like a ridge then, and then bring it around there. So what I might do now is, you've got all the mountain there, your mountain shapes, and you could add another like mountain shape down here without using like the edges here. So you see where I put the white that way and the black this way. You could bring like a peak here or something on the black. So for that, just the same process again. So we'll get the white on here, and I think just gonna have a small one here, I think, so you can get the white. What we'll do is just do a kind of peak, as though you're doing the mountains this side, but you're kind of making your own shape because you've got nothing to guide you, the outline, if you know what I mean. I'll just bring that a bit more like that. And like that. I'll bring that like that, why not? So then, you've got that, the highlighted side. It looks a bit flat or something at the moment because you've got no shadowed side on it. But when we put the darker colour on, the blue colour on this shadowed side, it should bring the mountain out a bit. So I'm just going to have a look at that white now. So like I said, just step away, have a look, see what you think to it. And I'm quite liking how that's looking. I'm liking the white on that. So like I said, now we'll move on and add the shadowed area of these mountains. So I'm going to get another piece of spare card. And for this I'm going to use just a lighter blue on this one. Lighter than the Mount Fuji on the ones there. And this one I'm going to use Mount Everest. So we'll spray some of that on there. So as you can see, two different colours. Just a bit lighter than the Mount Fuji, the Mount Everest. So then, I'm going to get a medium piece card. Rip the end off, so it's a bit rougher. And then it's the same as the other mountains. This one here, we'll just put a bit of blue, the Mount Everest, onto the card. And then we're just going to go that way with it to produce your shadow. So just rub it on the same way. Just taking your time and just building it up. Like I said, don't worry if you get any onto the white, because you can always go back over after you've added this in. Just put a bit of blue in that. Just going to drag it down a bit there. Just step away, have a look at that, how that's looking. I'm liking that colour blue on them. If you are following this tutorial, you don't have to have two different colour blues. What you could do, if you've got a darker blue and you've added the darker blue on these mountains, say there, you can use the same darker blue for these ones here, but just add a bit of white to it and give it a mix. Just make it a bit lighter. And then you can use that instead of two colours. So I'm going to bring a bit of shadow on this side. On here. So I'll pull that down this way like that. And what I might do, merge them together like that. So like I said, you still want a bit of a black as well, where it's real dark on the shadow side of the mountain. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a bit of blue there, just faint. Actually can just rub that a bit. So I'm liking that. Liking how that's looking the top and that. Like how the two merge here, the blues. As the two peaks come down. Let's move on to this one now. Just the same process when you're doing each peak. It'll work whatever shape your mountains are. So no rush. I'm just going to pull it down a bit. Get a bit of that texture off the black, off the paintbrush left. Step away. What I like to do when I'm adding the shadows to it, on each peak as well, just step away as you do each one to have a look at it. Alright, so I'm liking that. I'll move over to this last one on this side. So a bit too much blue on that there at the top, but that doesn't matter. You can just get the paint off there like that, and then we can just pull this. And a bit of blue there. And what we're going to do is just the same, just pull it down as we go. So we get a bit of colour blue in that shadowed area. Like that. So I'm really liking these, how these are turned out so far. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to this one. Like I said, there was no edge to follow there. We're just going to add it in, because it was a bit black there, a bit open space. So load the blue onto the piece of card. And then we're going to go, the same as we do these here, we're just going to go the opposite way. To the white, and we'll bring it down. Doesn't matter so much about the bottom here of your painting. If it's a bit rough, or you go over here with a bit of blue or anything, because you can fix that with the next stage of a painting. So I'll just bring that out like that. Step away, see what it looks like. Quite liking that. I might just add a bit of blue on there. Like I said, you can go back and add some white if you're not liking the way it's looking after you add this shadow colour to it. So I'm liking that. So as you can see, we've got no lines there, but just by following it at an angle, white this way and the shadowed area of the blue this way, you get like a mountain shape. So we'll move on to these ones now. I'm just going to bring this one down. Bring that like that. Step away, have a look. Put a bit more on. And you can bring a bit of blue there, so it looks it's like a kind of ridge there in there. So I'm liking that. This card's getting a bit clogged up in that. So, and also swapping the cards over can give you a bit of a different pattern in that. Because when you rip it, not every rip's the same. Doesn't rip the card the same. So I'll move on to this one. And bring it down like that. Give it a nice rub in the bottom. I'm liking that one. So then on these smaller ones now, so you could go to a smaller piece of card, or you could just use this, but be real careful. So I'm liking that. And the same on this one. So like that. So like I said, these mountains do take a while to add to your paintings. So this is why this tutorial is a bit longer than some of my other ones. Just because I want to explain each stage and each step in detail. So it's easy for you to learn when you're following along and learning how to paint your own mountains. So I had a bit too much blue on that then. But, like I said, it's alright. I'm going to take a lot off there. It's just got a bit. So we'll do the last one here. I'm just going to bring that off the paper, off the painting. So we've got that. So I'm going to step away and have a look at that. And I'm really liking how them mountains are looking. I think I'm just going to bring this so it looks like it's just going into a black spot there. I think just bring it a bit more. Just drag it slightly out there so it's behind. Drag it there. Bring that. Like I said, the bottom of this will be covered in a minute when I show you. So I don't really worry about too much about the bottom. So I'm just going to have a look at that now Like I said, it's always good to step back, have a look at it. So I'm quite liking that. I might think, just looking at it, this paint's almost dry now. Well, too thick to move well on the painting. Let's bring a bit more there. So I'm liking how that's looking. I'm going to leave that like that, I think. Yeah. Yeah, looking how I'm going to leave that. So that's a lighter blue on the shadow side of these mountains. And like I said, what I like to do is, it's up to you whether you do this, is go back and just go over a white a bit. On some of the white side, on the highlighted side. So, a bit of white paint on your spare piece of card again. It's entirely up to you whether you do go back and do it like this. I just like going back and touching it up a bit and adding a bit more white highlight on the higher parts of the mountains. So just go around on the higher parts and maybe just a bit on the other parts as well. I'll bring that there. Merge that in, I think. You can also add a bit more white as well if you want to. Make it look a bit better. So I'm just going to add a bit there. So I've added a bit more into there. You could do that when you put the shadow side in and you look at it and think, oh, I'll just add a bit here or a bit there. It's entirely up to you. Like I said, this stage, it's up to you whether you go back and you add a bit more white to it. It's entirely up to you. But I like going back and doing it. I'll just go to this one again. Just put a bit of white over on that. I'll put a bit more there, just bring that like that. A bit more white down on that edge. A bit there like that. So I'm quite liking them there now. Just put a bit more on there. Bit of white on the edge of this, I think. Just bring it down a bit. I might just bring it straight into that blue there. Yeah, I'm liking how that's looking on that one. So we'll move on to this. Just a case of taking your time and enjoying it. So I'll bring that there. On there. So now we've got the shadow in, we can just pull a bit there like that. Just bring a bit of white there. Let it fade into there. So I'm really liking this now. Really liking this painting. Really happy with the way these mountains are turning out. So put a bit more like that. So we're just looking and going over a bit. I want to add a bit more white if you want. It's up to you. I'll just bring a bit of white there. I'll leave that one like that. Bring that like that, and then this last one. Yeah, like that. Yeah, I'm really liking how that's looking. I'm really happy with the way they've turned out. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some mist to the mountains. So I'm going to use a cloud stencil again. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a real light coat, I think somewhere here, of white. I think there. And I might just put one there. So I think that's enough clouds on that one. I don't really want to cover these ones up because they're in the foreground. So what I'm going to do to finish this off now is I'm going to mist the bottom. So I'll just press the cap lightly and we'll move back and forth across the painting at the bottom of the mountains. Give it some mist. So that's why I said you don't need to really worry about the bottom too much, because misting them out covers it up. So I'm quite liking how they're looking. I like the mist and that on them. So I'm just going to step away and have a look at it. So I stepped away and had a look at it, and I'm really liking the way these are looking. I really like how these mountains have turned out. So that's how we had the mountains using that piece of card. So I hope that answers your question about what's the white thing that you use to make the mountains. All it is a piece of card. Just take your time when you're doing the mountains. So what I'm going to do now, so there are all the mountains finished. And what I think I might do is I might just finish off the painting here with something at the bottom. So you can carry on watching if you want and see how the final piece finishes. Or if you're here just for a mountain tutorial, it's up to you. It'd be greatly appreciated if you carry on watching to the end and see how the final piece turned out. So what I think I might do here now is, I think I might just add a few bushes, or you could add some trees here. Let me just have a think. I think what I might do is I'm just going to add a line of trees here. Just do something easy across the bottom in front of it. So I'm going to get the black. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the paintbrush here. And it's just a bit of a thinner paintbrush. This is a flat brush, but a thinner one than this one that we added to the mountains. Just to make the trees. So I'll sit that there. What I'll do is I'll get some black paint. So I'm just adding these trees and something in the foreground just to finish the painting off. Like I said, I've not really got a plan here how to finish it off, but I'll see how it goes as I'm working through it. So with the paintbrush, we'll get some black paint on the paintbrush, and all we're going to do is flick it up and down and move across to produce your trees. So quickly move up and down like that to produce your trees. So when you get some tree shapes, go up and down different lengths and that. So just keep going back and adding some black to this paintbrush. And also with the bottom of your mountains as well, if you're going to add trees or something in the bottom of them, it also covers the bottom of the mountains. So that's why I said you don't need to be that clean at the bottom when you're doing them. So I'll just go over some of these again, just add a few different heights in there. Bit there like that. So it's just get the black paint, up and down motion, pretty fast, and move across as you're doing it. And that's how you make trees in the distance. So like I said, I hadn't planned on doing anything more than just mountains in this tutorial, but I like how the mountains have turned out, so I thought I'd finish off the painting so it's a finished piece. So there are the trees in the distance below the mountains, using a smaller flat brush. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to push these back a bit in the painting, so I'm just going to mist them out a bit. So same as when we misted the mountains out, just do a light mist over these trees. Kept spitting a bit, but it's alright. So move pretty fast as you're misting. So I'm liking how they've turned out now, and I think what I'll do is, I think I'll finish it off. I think I might just put a bit of water here or something. Yeah, I'm going to put some water here, using the blue, so we're using the sky. So I'm going to need another tool here now if I'm going to add some water to it. And, where is it? Ah, here it is. So I'm going to be using this decorator's tool. I'm only going to be using this to put on the painting to stop any overspray when I add the water going on the rest of the painting. So what we'll do is, we'll put this on the painting where you want your water to go. I'm going to have it there. And then we're just going to add some of the colours. So I'm going to use some dark blue first. Some Barmuda. And some Summit. I'm going to use some white in the middle. Just put a bit of Mount Fuji at the side, I think, darken it up. So when you get something like this, so what you want to do, if you're doing the water, and you're adding water to your painting, and you're going to use something like this, a decorator's tool or something, you want the trees or the paint underneath before placing this on to be dry, else it'll leave a mark like this, dig into your painting. So like I said, just let each stage dry before moving on to the next. You'll get better results and no marks on your painting or any digging in like that. So now we've added the colours for the water. I'm going to have to get some clear coat now just to wet it up a bit so it's easier to move the paint. So all we'll do is just spray it lightly on it. Just a bit. Then we'll get our finger and I'm just going to go from side to side to mix the paint up slightly. So the paint's a bit dry there. I haven't put enough clear coat on, so just add a bit more clear coat to it. Then that should be easier for you to move the paint with your fingers. So just take your time when you're doing this. The paint will dry pretty fast when you're doing this, so just watch out as well when you're doing it. You don't want to rub it too much because the paint will dry. So I quite like how that's looking. Not too fond about this black at the top, but there's not a lot I can do with that, but it's alright. Just to finish the paint off, and what you can do is you can go back with this decorator's tool and just tidy the edge line up there. So add like a bit of mist now on the water, so it divides the water and the trees up. It's entirely up to you whether you do this or not. I like to add it to the painting. So with a decorator's tool or your straight edge, I'm just going to hold it just slightly above it. I'm just going to spray a bit of white. Just to add a bit of mist. So we get a bit of mist like that on the painting. And the last thing I'm going to do is, this is where I'm going to use the sponges. I had an idea that I might carry on and finish the painting off after I'd done the mountains for this tutorial. So I've got these sponges here to add just a bit of texture here right at the bottom. I was going to use these at the bottom of the mountains, but I changed my mind and added the trees instead. So I'm going to be using these sponges just to add a few bushes here at the bottom, just to break it up a bit. Right in the foreground. So I'm just going to put some black ones in. Just got a bit of white in. I'm going to fold that up. So I've got a clean piece. And all we're going to do is get some black and a spare piece of card like this. And the sponge. I'm going to get the sponge like that, hold it in your hands like that. And just fill it up with black paint. I'm just going to dab it on to see what pattern I get. So I'm not really liking that pattern. So I'm just going to move it around like that. And when using a sponge, it does soak a lot of the paint up. So you might have to add a bit more. I'll just try this again. I'll just use a spare piece there. So I think that'll do. Yeah, like that. So just press it on like that, just to add a few bushes at the bottom. Nothing much. Just finish it off. So we're just dabbing it on. Get a bit more black in here. Just give you a rough shape of some bushes. Just like that. Nothing fancy for the bottom. So a bit more on the sponge. And a few here. So just dab it on the painting. Like that. A bit more on there. So this sponge I'm using here is soaking a lot of the paint up. So I'm going to have to keep adding black to it. So what you could do is you could just bring that, and remember when I said about the black that was on the water there, just cover it up like that with a bit of bush sticking up a bit more, and just bring that one out a bit more like that. You don't have to do this when you're practicing your mountains. You can just do your mountains on a spare piece of card or whatever, or if you like your mountains, just carry on with the painting, because sometimes when you've added more to the painting, your mountains look a lot better than just sitting there on their own on the card. So if you're not liking the mountains, just carry on with the painting, finish your painting off, and then you might like your mountains then. So my gloves are all ripped here, but never mind, I'll just carry on. So what I'm going to do now is just get a bit more black on there, just to finish this off, I think. So I'm just going to use this different sponge, give you just a different texture. I'm just going to put a few things so it's sticking up so it looks like bushes and that. So just some spots here and there. Like that, and then same over on this side. So it's a bit like, I don't know, long grass or something coming off bushes, or some long bits of a bush sticking out. Bit more black paint. Bit more like that. Bit there like that. And I think that will do for the bushes on there, just to break it up. I think nothing special at the bottom. You can spend a bit longer and put them in a bit better. So just going to get a bit of black at the bottom of these. So I'm liking them bushes. So I'm really liking how this painting's looking now. So what I'm going to do is, because I've added a clear coat here to the water, I'm going to give the entire painting a quick clear coat. So we're just going to get the clear coat and we're going to spray back and forth across the painting, just to seal the painting, because you can use a clear coat to seal the painting as well as wetting the paint up, so it's easier to do things in your painting. So that's the clear coat added to the painting. And last thing to do is to sign a painting, and I'm going to use this palette knife to sign it, so I'm going to sign it there. So that's the painting signed, and I'm really happy with the way this has turned out. I really love the mountains, and I'm glad I added the trees and the water and the bushes at the end. Makes the painting look a bit nicer than just having the mountains there. So I hope you enjoyed watching this how to make your mountains look better tutorial. And if so, please give the video a like and a share, it'd be very much appreciated. And also, if you're a new visitor to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and bell notification so you know when I upload new videos. And once again, thank you for stopping by and watching. I hope to see you all in the next spray paint art video. Have a great day, take care, and bye for now.